If you've ever felt that your world is a step below those you've read about, Middle Earth, Russia, the stillness, hey, come here, you're doing great, don't doubt yourself or I will find you. The guys you're probably comparing your work to have been doing it professionally and for a bit. That being said, I've noticed some things they do that make their worlds feel a little bit more realistic and lived in. An extra 10% that isn't exactly creating flora and fauna or building cultures. And when I say realistic, I don't mean pertaining to real life. No, we deal in the art of speculative fiction here. It gets insane. But I am talking about the tongue twister of a word known as
verisimilitude.
Does your world feel real? You can go as wild as you want, an abstract world where triangles taste the way spring smells. But if you manage to convince the reader that this place is believable, key phrase in the context of the story, there's literally nothing else you need to do for your world. But the thing is, that is much easier said than done. I want the cube to make a comeback, but that was painfully hard to film, so direct your eyes to the glass of world building. Oh god, here we go. Your brain, your story, world building. All the things you've built, but it hasn't really reached that point of verisimilitude. Yes. You want the reader to have a complete and satisfying drink, and the first step in that is consistency. Have you ever tried drinking something you fully expected was water and then you spit it out because it wasn't? It wasn't bad or anything, it was just not water. That is exactly what world building and consistency feels like. Your taste buds were primed for H2O and you got cherry soda instead. This leans into the storytelling concepts of setup and payoff, promise and fulfillment. Consistency in this context means does everything you've created and continue to create work with what this world is? What it doesn't mean is the planet of hats. Everyone wears a hat in this world, every dwarf is Gimli. Everyone shares the same faith and religion, we're all greasy grandmas here. You get my point. The Wheel of Time is a broken world, no literally. Some rando with a staggering amount of power went mad and broke the world. Shattered cultures, displaced nations. Cultures are forced to evolve because of it. You can always see bits and pieces of traditions from before the break-in that doesn't really make sense for where they currently are. Except for that context of the world was broken. Magic got its fair share as well. Since it was a man that did all the damage, it tainted the male half of the magic. So male users start to lose their minds when they use it. It means the world at large becomes a matriarchy. Cause you know, men are essentially potential nukes. Every point does not go against what was previously set up. Consistency. And this is where I break out the classic writing is subjective. You might ask, what if I want a crazy world where nothing really makes sense and it's mystical and magical? And I'd say you can. Consistency doesn't equal rigidity. Remember the triangles tasting the way spring smells? Yeah, I was dead serious. Your world could be consistently inconsistent. If water is one person's world, then another person's world could be boba. Sometimes you're drinking, sometimes you're chewing, you never know which one. Does it make sense? No, not really. But you like it anyway because you put it to your lips expecting boba and you got boba. It's essentially what tone is. You set the pitch from the beginning. Your world and story, your brain, tone. I know I'm gonna miss the glass at some point in this video and my laptop is gonna go up in flames. You might question why there is a flat earth on the backs of 4 elephants all on the back of a giant turtle just out of sheer curiosity when you're reading Discworld. But it never breaks your immersion because the tone of absurdity is set right from the get-go. The first few stages of you introducing your world to your reader is you saying, hey, this is how this place works. This is water, this is cherry soda. This is how physics works. Yes, we constantly have giant earthquakes. It's fun here. Breaking that internal logic is definitely possible without breaking immersion too. But since we're shifting away from how the world works as the reader understands it, a why definitely helps it go down easier. The rest of your world works a certain way, but one of these things is not like the other, and that naturally warrants an explanation. There's a boba ball in your cup of water, but hey, this is one of those experimental restaurants where you pay through your nose for boba in your water. Context and tone. And the why doesn't have to be a problem to fix. It can actually spark really interesting world building. Robert Jackson Bennett's Foundry side does this fantastically. The world has this incredibly hard magic system that is a science in world and literally reads like writing code. But the main character has this softer magic that she doesn't fully understand. It's clearly shown to be non-standard, a deviation from the norm. But there is a why, and Bennett manages to tie that why to the plot, her character arc, and the world at large. Which is fantastic, but it doesn't have to be that deep. Depending on the story, the things it prioritizes and focuses on, the why might not be needed. But when you're trying to achieve believability for something that is purely fictional, the little things are what get you over that line. Keeping track of all those little things is also a part of consistency. Contradicting law is painful to read unless it's intentional, then it's a feature, like what is the real law? Wheel of Time does that a lot. I've mentioned before that your world bible doesn't need to be crazy extensive, but world building is fun and you're going to get carried away. And trying to find the law you wrote from the dozens of disjointed documents you might have might not be ideal, which is where Campfire comes in, this video's sponsor. Before I say anything else, hands down my favorite feature of this software is its ability ability to link stuff. Character sheets to locations to timelines. I had a process before this. Yeah, that process is just campfire now. It's so simple to see your world and story from a bird's eye view, to keep track of things you come up with and where it shows up in your work, which I think is especially helpful if you're a world builder as you write the story type of person. You might also like to doodle while you world build, and you can just slot the pictures right in or mood board, then simply add whatever lore goes with it, and then also link that to everything else. Between projects even. The mobile app is great as well because I'm a write anywhere, anytime type of person, and having pretty much full access to my novel and the lore that comes with it is pretty awesome. But if you want to showcase that awesome work to people, there's a platform for that. But here's the best part, maybe you don't need the crazy timeline feature, or the incredibly extensive character sheets, the relationship visualizer. You don't have to pay for what you wouldn't use, it's all customizable. Because at the end of the day, all of this just helps you do is write better stories faster. So you can try their free version, link in description. Thanks. We've just added a few more jobs and inch ever so close to verisimilitude. There is a little shortcut you can take, however. I mentioned achieving believability for something purely fictional, but who says it has to be purely fictional? I mean, you're always drawing from your experiences while you're writing, but you can consciously choose to borrow things from our world. It's what a lot of writers do with medieval Europe. But it definitely does not have to be medieval Europe, or as big as an entire time period. There is so much that you can choose to integrate into your world as touchstones of familiarity to the reader. But you say this person has a metal suit of armor and a sword, and our mind almost always goes through horses and carriages, low tech, monarchies. World building you don't necessarily have to add, but if you were going to, it's already there by association. R.F. Kuang's Poppy War is deep fried in Chinese culture. The Gentleman Bastards has a light brushing of Venice and Italy. Fond du Lis chooses distinct parts of different Asian cultures in the Greenbone Saga. I'm probably going to integrate Nigerian and African cultures into some of my works. And like I said, you don't necessarily have to borrow big things. Avatar is famously known for its bending styles drawing inspiration from real-life martial arts. It's a small aspect of our world that integrates itself seamlessly. Your world and story, your brain, the real world. There are endless examples, but I do want to mention that if you choose to borrow, it's going to be clear to some readers exactly where you're borrowing from. And the more you borrow, the more you have to work so you can fantasticalize the culture into your world without disrespecting it. Very nearly there, but there is one more thing before we quench our thirst. I talked about the planet of Hat trope, but the antithesis to that is variance. In my opinion, there's just something about a monotone world that sits firmly in the uncanny valley. There's only one religion here, there's only one culture, the magic works this way and this way only. I don't know about other readers, but when I see that, it feels like the world exists in a vacuum. I see the hand of the author going, okay, this is the way things are, and I don't know if you felt that too while you're reading. It's okay if you don't build multiple cultures or religions or cities with incredible detail, but even just making mentions to those things or referencing them makes the world seem larger than it already is. And further than that, even if you have the this is the one way this is situation, just having people be able to look at it in different ways also contributes towards verisimilitude. And for them to be able to look at it from multiple sides, it has to be three-dimensional enough for that. Not everyone might have the exact same philosophies on a religion. Even if it's the hardest of magic, people will have their own spin on how they use it. Some people will prefer some traditions in a culture to others. It's like the why, it just helps it go down easier. But this is where I toss in another writing is subjective. For everything I've mentioned up until now, but here specifically, because you might want to intentionally sit in that uncanny valley if your story demands it. Maybe you might want to unsettle the reader with your world, or use it to showcase another aspect of your world building, like hey, everything is this one way because of this other thing. At the end of the day, every story is unique, so use your own discretion while writing and world building. And if you want to see me break down how The Last of Us show does what I just talked about, then click this video right here. I am going to drink this because I've talked a lot and I am thirsty. Okay, bye.